Okay, welcome. If you manage large scale projects, especially at a company like Alpha Constructions, you know the drill, right? You often feel like you're at the mercy of the world around you. But what if that's not the whole story? What if every major project had a hidden power? A power not just to follow the rules, but to fundamentally change them? Let's explore that.
You know that feeling. You've got this groundbreaking plan, but right away you're hit with a mountain of regulations, industry standards, and all this red tape. It can feel like you're trying to innovate inside a very small, very rigid box. I mean, that's the daily reality for most of us in this field. But what if that box isn't nearly as solid as it seems? So, before we can even talk about changing the game, we've got to understand the rules we're all playing by right now. This is the familiar territory for any project manager, a world that feels like it's defined by constraints. Now, there's a really interesting academic term for this: institutions. It sounds kind of formal, but the economist Douglas North came up with this brilliant, simple way to think about it. He said, institutions are just the rules of the game. They're the laws, the social norms, the regulations, even the unwritten expectations that guide how we all work together. The conventional wisdom, the way we usually think about it, is that this is a one-way street. The rules of the game are already set, and your project just has to adapt. They tell you what you can and can't do, basically shaping your project from the outside in. And just think about how deep that influence goes. We're talking about everything from property laws that decide where you can build, to environmental regulations that define how you can build, technical standards, tax policies, public procurement rules. All of these are these huge external forces pushing on your project, shaping its budget, its timeline, and honestly, its very existence. And yeah, that's the world as we usually see it. But according to the research we're diving into today, that whole perspective is missing something absolutely crucial. It turns out that's only half the story. And here it is. This is the core idea that just changes everything. This single sentence completely flips the script. It's saying that big projects aren't just passively following the rules. No way. They are active agents of change. They are shapers and breakers of the very frameworks that are supposed to be boxing them in. So the huge takeaway here is that it's not a one-way street where rules just dictate everything to projects. It's actually a dynamic two-way street. They influence each other. Let's take a look at what that actually means in action. This diagram from the source material really shows it perfectly. See the arrows? You've got the external rules of the game, things like regulations and policies, and they're pushing inward on the project. That's the one-way street we just talked about. But here's the game changer. You also have arrows pointing outward. The project itself, its unique financing, its ownership model, its technology, is pushing back, actively challenging and reshaping those external rules. Okay, so this is a fantastic theory, right? But how does it actually work in the real world? Let's break down the practical ways a project can start to use this hidden power. I mean, that's the key question, isn't it? It's one thing to say a project can change the rules, but what are the actual mechanisms? How does a collection of concrete, steel, and contracts somehow manage to rewrite laws and norms? Well, it happens in a few really powerful ways. A truly ambitious project, it tests the limits of old ways of doing things, and it shows that they're just outdated. It brings up new, complex questions that existing laws were never designed to answer, which forces regulators to adapt. Think about a project that introduces some radical new building material. It doesn't just build a structure, it literally forces a change in the entire building code. And once that new way of doing things works, it sets a precedent. It becomes the new normal, the new rule of the game for everybody else. So, why does any of this matter to you and your business? Because look, understanding this two-way street isn't just some interesting academic idea. It is a profound strategic advantage. This whole insight really creates a clear line in the sand between two mindsets. The reactive mindset sees rules as these fixed, solid walls, just obstacles you have to carefully navigate. But the strategic mindset, it sees those same rules as variables, as negotiable starting points. It looks at those institutional challenges not as roadblocks, but as real opportunities to innovate and lead the whole industry. So how do you actually put this into practice? Well, here's your new playbook. Step 1, you've got to reframe. See that regulatory hurdle? Not just as a risk to be managed, but as an invitation to propose a smarter rule. Step 2, pioneer. Intentionally use your project to create new standards that other people are going to follow. And finally, step 3, master it. Make the art of shaping this environment a core competency for your team.
just as vital as engineering or finance.
When you boil it all down, the message is incredibly powerful and really direct. Your project has so much more power than you think. The most successful, most influential organizations out there don't just master the existing roles, they're the ones who have the vision and the strategy to write the next chapter.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with a question to really think about for your own work. Look at the landscape ahead of you. What rule, what regulation, what standard that everyone else thinks is unbreakable is your next project perfectly positioned to change forever?